This is Project CB News, where the truth matters. Buckle your seatbelts, everyone. We are approaching some turbulence. So let's get this buckled down. And a very warm and welcome to you, Kalnisha. So, what can we expect for 2023 and interest rates?
So, a couple days ago, the governor of the Reserve Bank increased the repo rate by 25 basis points. What that means for us is that there's a 0.25% increase in the prime interest rate, and it's now sitting at above 10% for the first time in a very long time. And essentially, what that means for us is that we're going to be paying more for our debt. It also means we're going to be paying more in retail prices where those businesses have debt. So essentially, what we're going to expect in the short term is for prices to increase.
So that means everything is going to increase. I mean, we are thinking about the food prices as well. And maybe even the petrol price will increase. So it means literally that everything is going to increase yet again.
Yeah, so I mean, it's very difficult to draw direct lines between the interest rate and things like the fuel prices, right? But if you think about it just rationally, if if I own a business, a retail business, and I'm selling food stuff every day, and I have a bond on the property that I'm using to run my shop out of, and if my bond payment increases on that property, I'm going to have to increase my prices in order to cover up for those increases in the bond payments, right? It's the same if you're running a business and if they have overdrafts or if they have trade creditors. Everything that's debt based, the prices are going to increase because you're paying more in interest on that debt. And businesses typically pass on those burdens to their customers. It's how it works in the short term.
Yeah, so, but this is the thing with having a small business or even a large business per se, is that if the repo rate increase, you have to manage your finances, and then everything in your business increase. Whether it's whatever product you have in your business, you need to settle the scores as well and say, okay, listen, this is what we need to do just to survive. It's actually just a survival thing at this point, or I'm just being silly on that statement.
I mean, I do think it's been the last year's been very difficult for everybody. You've mentioned the food price increases because of the situation in Eastern Europe, the war between Ukraine and Russia. The fuel prices have shot up. Food prices have shot up because there's a grain shortage. And we've been feeling the brunt of it. I mean, everybody's been feeling the brunt of it. I know definitely, like, my weekly grocery bill has probably doubled in the last year.
Yes.
And I think most households are facing those pressures, right? And at the same time, we must remember that the knock-on effect of COVID was that people had to take salary cuts, people were retrenched in the wake of the pandemic, and we haven't yet recovered from those difficulties. And again, I know for certain in my household, we hadn't as yet recovered from all of that. Business hasn't gone back to where it was pre-COVID. Salaries haven't gone back to where they were pre-COVID. So in the wake of what is already a constrained environment, constrained households, we were also burdened with increasing prices, increasing fuel prices, having to return to work, so feeling the increase in fuel prices. If the fuel price increased and we were all on lockdown, we wouldn't have complained as much, right?
Yeah.
But now we're back sitting in traffic with higher fuel prices. So everybody's really, really constrained. And the reason the article that I wrote reads the way that it does is I don't think that the regulatory environment, the policy environment, the people that make the rules in our country have considered all the different impacts that the average household is facing in the country when they make the same decisions that they always make, right? Because we are living in very, very different times.
speaking of different times, just the past 2 years, I mean, from being in lockdown out to go about and do your thing and try to do business. We are just talking about normal, medium, or entrepreneurial business as such. It is extremely hard to just be out there and to survive. It's not as easy as it, and it wasn't that easy prior COVID, but it's it feels as if it's just more difficult to just it's like barely breathing at this stage.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the studies are showing us that business sales cycles are taking far longer. People are taking longer to make decisions, to buy services from small businesses. And I mean, again, it's a result of everybody just being constrained. Even the biggest businesses right now, big corporates have constrained budgets. So they're just taking longer to make decisions to buy new or additional services from the smaller businesses. It's completely understandable in a theoretical sense, but it doesn't, just because it's understandable doesn't make our lives as small business owners any easier, right?
Yeah. But we don't even speak about the business owners. Let's talk about the man on the street. I mean, the poorer will just getting poorer, the richer will probably get richer. But there's the middleman who is trying to juggle everyday life. And I
Yes.
think that middle, or not that person in the middle is just, we don't know where to go. Are we just giving up and say let it be, or are we pushing forward and say there should be a brighter end to all of this?
I think the big challenge that we all face in this country is that, I mean, we've been very quiet and not vocalizing our specific concerns about policy, about the economic environment, about politics for a long time, right? I think our default as South Africans is to wait and see and be optimistic and look for the silver lining. But I really think that 2023 is our tipping point. We need to be more vocal about our concerns. We need to be more aware of what is going on. And the interest rate hike is just one example, right? So if you think about it at an economic level, the one crisis that we're in is the energy crisis. And a key
Yes.
resolution to the energy crisis is for the government and for our country to attract foreign investors to come and build energy producing facilities, right? We
Yeah. Yeah.
want the large scale players in the global market to choose South Africa to come build their wind farms and their solar farms so that we can generate more electricity.
Yeah.
At the same time as we're trying to increase investments in the country, we raise the interest rates, which makes it difficult to invest in the country because debt becomes more expensive. In order to build these wind farms and solar farms, these companies need to get lines of credit. And so you're making it a more expensive environment to do business. And who wants to do business in a more expensive environment? So you speak of uncertainty, all these mixed signals and mixed messages that our economic environment is sending to us as small business or business owners in South Africa, but also to the global market, just creates uncertainty, and nobody wants to exist in an uncertain space,
Yeah,
right?
that's true. Yeah.
And we don't have the luxury, I think, as those of us that are sitting firmly in the middle, don't have the luxury anymore of just waiting and seeing. I think for the sake of our country and for us to emerge from these challenges that we're facing, we need to voice our concerns, and we need people to hear the real thinking and thought process behind these concerns, because clearly they're not thinking for us.
Yeah, I fully agree with that because the power players out there, and this is only my opinion, is that they only think about themselves. If you go take those power players and put them in the poorest of poor conditions, or just right in the middle class, and I think then the eyes will be open and say, okay, but this is what we'll do, and this is how we can do it. And yet again, it's just my opinion is that I don't see that they are feeling what we as the people on the ground feel.
I mean, and I 100% agree with you, right? They definitely do not feel what we feel. Um, the interest rate increases, for example, benefit people who have savings in the bank, right? The average South African is racked with debt. So there's no savings in the bank.
Yeah.
But the high income earners, people that make these kinds of decisions and influence these kinds of decisions, don't have those problems that those of us that are sitting firmly in the middle have. And again, I mean, the decisions look good on paper. Inflation targeting through interest rate management is theoretically a good policy on paper. It impresses regulators, right? But it does nothing for the people. It does nothing for the people, which is the problem. Because I feel like our systems, our economic systems and structures have been so focused on impressing whomever they choose to impress at the expense of the people for like very long. And it's time to sort of fix that now.
So how would we fix it? How are we as citizens of South Africa, how can we fix it? Because at the end of the day, we need to voice ourselves. We need to say, hey, listen to the South African people out there. Don't listen to the power players or whoever, but those who need it the most, those are the ones that will benefit at the end, at the long run, if we do the following. So what would we do? Or what can we do?
I really think, I mean, and at the risk of sounding very, very political, I think that at this time, it's really time for us to use our voice. And I think use any means possible to air your opinion about the situation, the economic situation in the country. Use any means possible to understand the situation and what it means for your business or for your household, and let your concerns be known. And only if all of us speak together and are vocal together can we actually influence the decision makers. Because, I mean, we have 3 months, right? Sure. The Monetary Policy Committee, the Interest Rate Committee, sits every 3 months to make a decision whether to stay or to increase or decrease the interest rate. We want to use the next 3 months to be as vocal as possible to try influence their decisions to decrease the interest rate.
It is very important. Let us vocalize because, like you said, we as South Africans are very placid. We like actually happy-go-lucky. Whatever comes, we'll take it and we'll be creative about it and see how we can do things. But it reminds me of going back to the 60s and the 70s, where the people started to vocalize and say, listen, but this is wrong and this is wrong. So at the end of the day, let us stand up and say something. Let us not be silent anymore.
I think that's exactly it. I mean, I remember when I was the late 90s, early 2000s, when I was at university, and we were all protesting with Treatment Action Campaign for free antiretrovirals. I don't know if you remember those days, or if you're old enough to remember those days.
No, I remember.
And I mean, we need that kind of movement now, because our economy, I mean, the people that are making the decisions can afford to immigrate, right? They can afford to leave the country. They can afford to send their children overseas to study and set them up in a different economy. That's the reality of the situation. Most of us don't have that luxury. So this is kind of what we've got, and we've got to take care of it. And it really, really is up to us to make sure that our voices are heard, and like dig deep into our souls, and pull out the activists that are surely there. Right? We were born in this country with activism in our blood. It's now time to exercise it.
So, Kalnisha, this is the time that we vocalize, we go out onto the streets, and we put our flags there and say, listen, hear us, because it always seems to work like that, is that the people need to go to the streets and to vocalize and say, listen, we are in trouble, we are struggling. But unfortunately, and it has been proven, and I'm going to be a little bit political about this, although we are talking about the economy, but these two, the politics and economy, are very much related and integrated as well. But the fact remains that if we don't say anything, if we don't do anything, if we don't vocalize and speak and say, listen, that the current your party, the political party that's there, you're just thinking about yourselves. You're not thinking about the people. It's more of a isolated me, myself, and I kind of feeling, but they're not out there for the people, and that is time. Time needs to change that. It's not even time, it's the now needs to change this, because the people are in trouble. The economy, not even the people, the economy is in great trouble.
So, I mean, I tend not to make political statements because I don't think any one party is to blame, or any one party is at fault, right? Or even that any one party can solve the problem. I really believe that, like, the actual pain of us as citizens of this country needs to be heard by all parties.
Yes.
The pain of the citizens, what we actually go through on a daily basis, needs to be heard and felt by all parties, because all party leadership right now today in South Africa is very removed from the plight of the people. And I also, at risk of going into a completely public sector conversation, we must also realize that even though certain political parties are in charge, it's still people at the end of the day that control the systems and that influence the decision making. So whereas each municipality has a mayor, there's also a municipal manager whose job it is to keep the operations running. And it's like this in all structures. The municipal manager doesn't change just because the mayor changes if it's a new political party.
Yes.
Right? We need to like educate ourselves and be so aware of who's leading us and who's pushing the buttons and who's pulling the strings and what their intentions are. And we need to make them aware of what we're going through, not just what we're going through, right? But what we want.
Yes.
What we want, because this government, this leadership, the public sector structures are supposed to be serving us as citizens. But they're going to continue serving themselves if we aren't vocal about what we want and what we expect out of that leadership.
So it is time for us to get very vocal about this. But Kalnisha, so let's get back to the repo rate. What would it mean for us for 3 months? Okay, so we'll definitely have to be very vocal about it. We need to speak about it, and it's this conversations that we have now that just might change our future. So what is this with the loans and cars? I mean, everything is getting, it's if you have debt on your car or on your house, you're going to feel it in 2023. You're going to feel it right now.
You're definitely going to feel it, even more so if you have debt on a credit card. So, in terms of managing the situation as an individual or as a household, my advice is try to pay as much of your expensive debt as possible, right? So your most
Yes.
expensive debt typically is your credit card, or store cards, or if you've taken personal loans, that kind of debt. Try to pay as much of it off as you can. My next biggest advice, and this is even if the repo rate was decreasing, was try not to buy groceries and consumables on credit, right? A lot of people make this mistake. So you're buying food to eat today or with your credit card, but you're going to be paying that credit back for the next 6 months, and being paying interest on it, right? So try
Yes.
your best not to buy things that are consumable on your credit card. And I know times are difficult for everybody, and the food price is what it is. And so you might not have a choice. And if you don't have a choice, try to keep it, try to contain the budget as far as possible. I really think, especially for the next 3 months until we know what the Reserve Bank's next move is, I don't think people should be making, your basic day-to-day consumer decisions like
Yes.
shopping for clothes, shopping for makeup, perfume, anything that is that you can do without. I think avoid buying at this stage. Definitely avoid um, buying a new car on credit. It's a risky move. If you have to buy a vehicle, buy something well below your current affordability. That's kind of the only way to mitigate budgetary constraints into the future. What we're going to see happening over the next, probably over the course of this year, is that property prices are going to decrease because people are going to stop being able to afford their bonds, right?
Okay.
It's a bit of a travesty. So if you are in the market for a house, the advice would be to, take your time in making that decision because it's likely going to work in your favor down the line.
Okay, so that is great advice, actually, Kalnisha, because consumables, you just do the basics, bare basics. If that is this is what you need for this 3 months, bare basics, and then we have to see what the when you want to have a bond or a house bond or whatever, you can manage that, so that will become a less so that will be a little bit cheaper at the end. So the real challenge for this 3 months, we've got a challenge. We need to settle our debt, and don't do consumables. That was the advice for this 3 months. For businesses, what advice for small businesses? What advice would you give for them?
For small businesses, my advice is pretty much the same. I think it will be difficult to make any debt-based decisions now. So if you are looking to expand your business, expand your business on the basis of guaranteed contracts or guaranteed work. I think it'll be it's most risk averse to do that, and it would be very risky to expand your business in at this stage with hope, because usually expansion means going into debt, and the debt is going to be expensive. So if you aren't certain that you're going to be able to service the debt, maybe don't do it, or maybe stagger the expansion.
Okay.
It's very, very, and that's for small businesses. And what we're going to see also, the other advice I have for small businesses is, if you are in an expansionary process, consider alternative mechanisms of raising capital. So look at venture capital and private equity rather than taking out loans from the bank.
Okay.
Because you would, in this kind of environment, you'd probably get a better deal. Yeah.
Okay, so that's great advice. So hopefully, I mean, we're all in small businesses, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to sit tight for the moment. It's like literally sit back and check it out until the 3 months are over, and then we'll do a reassessment of the repro. Oh, they are going to do a reassessment, but we need to sit tight for 3 months at this moment.
Yeah. Sit tight and make our concerns
Oh,
known.
yes. Sit. That's exactly. Yeah. Be vocal while you're sitting tight and hang on to what you have. And yeah, so make your concerns known. That is exactly what we need to do for 2023. And thank you so much, Kalnisha. We'll definitely buckle up, and we'll definitely sit tight in a little bit, because we are approaching that turbulence, but we'll get through this as well.
We will definitely. I mean, we South African, we get through the most.
Yeah, with a braai and no, that's just tongue in this cheek. But with a braai and some good friends and good South African humor, we'll get through this turbulence as well. We are a very resilient nation as well, so we'll get through this. This brings us to the end of our show. Go to our website to uncover more stories at projectcb.online.